All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to 2025 Digital Trends. My name is Nkemdi Limuwajibeo, and I will be presenting today. Please, if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat. I'll be looking at the chat from time to time just to kind of see if there's anything in there that, I need to answer that is part of the, the slide that we're on at that time. So feel free to drop your questions if anything is unclear or if I'm moving too fast. When I looked at the, expectations that people had from this, there was a lot of kind of people who said, oh, their expectation is around AI and, kind of knowing what's happening in AI. And in as much as, yes, we will definitely cover AI because that's such a big area of technology and, it's really, sort of evolving. But I think we will also, apart from, sort of covering AI, we will, cover a lot of other areas as well. So I hope that, you guys enjoy this session. As I said, please ask questions if you have any, and, we will, sort of take it from there. All right, so we'll start with, a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. And it's really to sort of start with where are we now, right? Like, let's look at 2024. What are the trends that we saw in 2024? Then we'll talk a little bit about AI and automation. We'll talk about data privacy and ethics, sustainability marketing and ESG brand integration before we then move into emerging technologies, the evolution of digital marketing. We'll talk a little bit about governance and risk because there's a lot of board members and executives that have signed up for this as well. And then we'll talk about future proofing for 2025 and, sort of how executives can do that and what are the strategic considerations that they need to keep in mind. So let's get started. So we'll look at 2024. So the year was 2024, and we really saw, sort of a revolution of AI, right? So when I think back in 2023, in January, I did a digital trends session for 2023, and that's when ChatGPT had just sort of become mainstream, and it was, sort of that really big buzz. And when I look at how AI has evolved, it's just truly very, very amazing, because we've seen such a massive shift and such a massive change throughout, the last 2 years. And, you've seen tools like ChatGPT evolve, and, tools like Midjourney. They've really bridged the gap between human innovation and machine efficiency. And, when I kind of was preparing for this, I was really, sort of thinking, wow, like we've come so far. And it's just like a real revolution that's happened in that AI space, right? So when you think about administrative tasks, there's hardly any letter or email that goes out that isn't, either proofread or even composed by ChatGPT or Meta or, a different type of AI. Obviously, in operations, there's a lot of use of AI with automating mundane tasks, customer support, marketing, cybersecurity, you name it. In nearly every part of the business, we saw AI and automation. When it comes to security, we saw the zero security trust model gaining more traction, really emphasizing strict identity verification, authentication, and authorization. When it comes to Web3 technologies like DeFi, we saw them continuously expanding and really challenging traditional banking models. We also saw a global expansion into the 5G space, right, where we are seeing faster data speeds, lower latency, And that's really benefiting industries such as obviously telcos, healthcare, autonomous vehicles, right? We've seen really, sort of XR technologies, which is basically including VR and augmented reality as well, AR, really gaining further traction in the different sectors like healthcare, education, retail, real estate, and enabling immersive learning experiences, remote collaboration, and virtual product trials. So it's really been, sort of like a really, really amazing journey. And obviously, that's not all, right? We've sort of seen the evolution of multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, and the adoption of that, which help businesses, sort of avoid vendor lock-in, really improve their resilience, and also meet specific regulatory requirements. And when you look at regulatory requirements, there's a lot of things happening and shifting as well in a lot of the different sectors, especially in financial services. We've also seen the rise of sophisticated cybersecurity threats. So that really so this is like deep fakes, right? We've had incidents where, a CFO wired $25 million because he got an instruction with the voice from the CEO, an email with the CEO's signature. And, at the end of the day, it was one of those things where he didn't do anything wrong, right? He followed the protocol. Unfortunately, it just was, the account was hacked, the voice was, sort of stolen, and it was all a deep fake. But this really, these sophisticated cybersecurity threats made organizations really prioritize and enhance security protocols, including multi-factor authentication, advanced encryption, and also using AI to really drive their threat detection, protect against, their critical assets, and ensure data integrity. On the Internet of Things side, we also saw that there were more and more IoT devices across smart homes, healthcare, manufacturing, logistics, and all of that really enabled real-time data monitoring, automation, and predictive maintenance. And I think those are some of the trends we'll see also going into 2025 evolve a little bit more. When it comes to social commerce, we saw platforms like Instagram and TikTok and Facebook expand their e-commerce capabilities, and that really allowed users to buy products directly from ads, live streams. It helped them merge social media and online shopping in a way that increases conversion, right? And I think we're going to continue to see that as well. So also on the data privacy and regulation side, we saw regulations like GDPR, NDPR, CCPA, really driving businesses to focus on compliance, data governance, and really enhancing the data handling practices to protect consumer privacy. And I think that's, something that's really, really good, where regulation sort of changes the way data is being handled. We also saw a growing demand in sustainable technology, energy efficient devices, renewable energy solutions, and technologies that are aimed at reducing carbon footprints across different sectors. In quantum computing, there are major strides that are being made with really advancements in the processors, right? So, and when you look at the stock price of companies like AMD or NVIDIA, you really know that that is the direction that things are trending. And when you compare that to, when they sort of started talking about these things in, 4 or 5 years ago, a lot has really changed and, truly evolved. And, when you think about NVIDIA just launched a supercomputer at CES, and it's basically this small. It costs $3,000 and has the entire NVIDIA AI stack in it, right? So the computing power is, unimaginable, basically. This is going to unlock new possibilities in areas like cryptography, drug discovery, and optimization. And Obviously, we also saw a lot of changes in digital payments and cryptocurrency solutions. Contactless payments are on the rise, digital wallets. We're seeing, sort of more regulation in the crypto space, but also more acceptance within the crypto space, right? So when you look at, after Donald Trump got elected, Bitcoin surged. And why did Bitcoin surge? Because people know that his stance on crypto is much more relaxed than the previous administration, right? And those are things that will really drive adoption as well. So we're seeing a lot of changes in those spaces. So now it's 2025, and when we look at the global digital transformation market, it's currently valued at approximately $2.7 trillion, right? So sometimes when we think about digital transformation, we're like, yeah, that's kind of in the past, we've already done that, but there's new digital transformation that is happening now, AI transformation, transformation around, cloud transformation, around, AI and quantum computing, around IoT devices and 5G. So this market is actually going to grow. It's projected to actually soar to $12.3 trillion by 2032. And this really reflects a staggering annual growth of 20.9%, which is really crazy. It's evolving, it's unfolding. There's so many industries that are still seeking to really master the transition to cloud, embedding AI, integrating other emerging technologies into their operations. So there's a lot of work for people who work in that space, consultants, CIOs, CISOs, to do on that front. We're really experiencing this major paradigm shift in how businesses operate, innovate, and compete. A lot of companies are not just adopting tools, but really rethinking, their strategies for the future, right? And I think, one of the things with rethinking strategies is really that business models are totally changing. And I think that's, one of the things that will really zone into here in this masterclass. So we'll explore some of the key trends that are shaping this transformation and how businesses can really harness them to grow, thrive, and lead in 2025 and beyond. So this is just, sort of like a little bit of background of where we are in technology today, what, the market trends are saying, and sort of like where we're going. So we'll talk about AI automation, and we'll talk about just general, like what the trends are around automation, agentic AI, how business models are being disrupted, co-robotics, what role 5G plays in this, hyper-personalization, and a little bit about, a little bit about all the different governance changes that we're seeing as well. So we've really experienced this, growth in AI, right? And I think everybody by now sort of knows the term Gen AI, right? Generative AI, which is basically AI that can answer questions, that can generate content, whether it's images, text, or pictures, or videos, right? But what we're really seeing now is that the next frontier is agentic AI. Agentic AI is basically where machines will autonomously make choices and decisions. They will learn in real time. So it's not a model that you've kind of trained and then you sort of have that at the back, but this is constant and ongoing learning that's going to be happening. And that will help them to really adapt to very complex environments with little or no human input. OpenAI, which is obviously ChatGPT's parent company, they are about to launch a tool called Operator, which is an advanced AI agent really designed to autonomously perform tasks on behalf of its users. So unlike traditional AI models that just kind of generate text, Operator will execute complex actions. So it can write code, it can book your travel, it can do all sorts of different things, interact with applications directly. And this is, sort of the beginning of OpenAI really going into agentic AI. And we're going to see other AI providers doing the same, right? And it's really a massive, massive advancement in AI capabilities, and sort of the potential applications in terms of really looking at how's that going to impact business operations, right? So organizations can really leverage Operator to automate complex tasks, personal assistance, right? If that's, sort of your job, Operator will come for it. And, those are some of the things that everybody needs to think about. If you are a developer and you write code, Operator will be able to actually write code probably better than you, right? It will also have the ability to debug your code, and that could potentially accelerate software development life cycles, right? So that means that we're going to see technology accelerate even more than it has in the last, sort of 2 years, right? And I think that when you look at where ChatGPT started and where it's going now with agentic AI, it's already a massive, massive, sort of jump. We're also going to see, sort of trends around co-robotics, which is collaborative robotics. So collaborative robotics is basically going to see a rise. And collaborative robotics simply means that robots and AI sort of work alongside humans, right, in different industries like manufacturing, healthcare, logistics. And the robots will, be designed to really assist and augment human capabilities rather than replacing them, right? So this just helps improve productivity and also safety in these type of organizations, right? But when you think about, most people that are here are probably from Nigeria or from somewhere on the continent, and when you think about, sort of what this means for people on the continent, right? We're nowhere near co-robotics, right? But it means that efficiency in other parts of the world will rise while ours stays stagnant. So we really need to think about what we're going to do to accelerate efficiency, accelerate output, accelerate, sort of productivity in our operations and in our manufacturing and industry especially, right? If we want to keep up or become any type of leader in the world. We're also going to see a shift with, human AI collaboration, where humans and AI sort of co-create, co-design, and solve problems. And when you have tools like Operator, that will, be done because Operator will work with you side by side, right? And because it's constantly learning as you're learning, you'll see, a lot of innovation sort of coming out of that. So we really expect to see business models being disrupted as AI fully takes over tasks like customer service, content creation, data analysis with much, much greater accuracy and speed than humans ever could. That really means that you're going to really see, a shift in how things are actually being addressed and being done. We're also going to see AI becoming more agentic, like I already said, and more autonomous. And that means that we're going to need much deeper and much more comprehensive ethical guidelines and regulatory frameworks, right? That really ensure that AI is being used in a responsible manner. And also that you have the right type of guidelines in place, right? So that we can address things like bias, right? So there's still a lot of bias in any type of AI because there's bias in human decision making, right? transparency, accountability, especially when you have high-stake industries like healthcare or law enforcement or finance, right? The use of AI and the ethical use of AI is really, really important. Agentic AI can also, or we're predicting that it will enhance governance by autonomously, being able to track compliance, right? So automating audits, ensuring proactive risk management, and really improving transparency and reducing human error, right? So imagine your entire, sort of governance backbone being handled by an agentic AI tool like Operator, right? That is constantly learning, that can, sort of take in new regulations, that can adjust things, that can give real-time updates, real-time data of your current compliance status, of your current risk exposure, and things like that. And then obviously we will also see how, there will be a lot of brands that will be able to also harness AI to create hyper-personalized customer experiences. So I think we're already doing a lot of personalization in our marketing, in our brand marketing, and, sort of just in communication with customers and other stakeholders. But predicting the needs before customers can actually articulate them, and then automating that, and, being able to sort of tweak campaigns real time, optimize them, personalize content, and improve customer engagement at scale. That will be a real, sort of game changer that AI will bring. So for AI and automation, AI transformation is basically in full force. We're going to see huge shifts in business models, operations, risk management, and the role of humans, as well as compliance and governance. So I think it's time for executives and board members to really think about how is this evolution of AI and the move to agentic AI and co-robotics actually going to impact their businesses, right? And, a lot of the time we have people say, oh, well, we're not there yet. Oh, we're still trying to figure it out. Oh, we just launched our AI strategy. But the truth is that the more you sit and watch, the more it will evolve, right? And the more you will be left behind. So it's really, really important to actually engage as fast as possible and as much as possible. So both co-robotics and agentic AI will drive significant efficiency improvements by, sort of automating repetitive tasks and supporting complex decision making. And that means that human workers are going to be free to focus on more strategic and creative roles, right? So as these technologies, however, advance, we're also going to see concerns around ethics, accountability, transparency in AI decision-making. We need regulatory frameworks that are very robust, that ensure responsible use, right? And, when you see things like, there was a video of a robot that went into a room where there were other robots, and he basically he kidnapped all the robots. So he started giving the robots commands, right? So this robot had pretty much evolved and was now saying to the other robots, okay, no, leave these tasks and come to this place. And he basically kidnapped all of them into a different room. So when you see those type of things, then it makes you sort of really think about all those sci-fi movies that, you watched when you were much younger, and really think about, okay, is this something that, needs to be considered, right? And then someone in the chat asked about hiring AI employees. Yes, this is already happening. There are massive, massive organizations like, companies like Globant that actually, where you can hire AI employees. When you look at, especially in cities like San Francisco, there are billboards all over the place, basically, saying, you don't need humans, hire AI for a fraction of the price. So this is not anything that is really in the future. It's already happening, So I think it's something that everybody really needs to think about. And businesses that are scaling with AI and robotics, they can operate more efficiently, cost effectively, but they have to be prepared to also address these ethical challenges and compliance challenges, right? And if you are from any, regulator or, yeah, you're basically in charge of governance in some or regulation in some way. We have the tendency, I think, on the continent to really, sort of be very reactive in our regulations. I think this is a time to be proactive. I think this is a time to learn. This is a time to engage stakeholders within the industries. I think this is a time to co-create and collaborate and also look at what other people are doing, where the technology is more advanced, in order to allow technology and AI and automation and all of these things that I've talked about to become a strategic driver for socioeconomic development on the continent, right? So we really need to be very, very strategic in how we position our technology regulations and our technology adoption as a whole. So we've talked a little bit about data privacy and ethics already. But we'll dive a little bit deeper and really just talk about what the trends are that we're seeing in that space. So overall, there's going to be the consumer at the core, right? So you're seeing a shift towards consumer-centric privacy practices. So we're going to see stricter data privacy regulations, and there'll be more regulations also coming out that will be more stringent. I also think that from an enforcement perspective, it's going to become much more enhanced and where, organizations will have to comply with these things, whether they like it or not, right? And I think organizations just will be pushed to really think about data protection and what they're doing around data protection. The concept of privacy by design is going to become a standard practice. So basically, this means that you're going to be embedding privacy features directly into products and services and data management practices right from the onset. So right when you're doing your product design, you're already thinking about all of these things, right? So privacy and data isn't sort of like that thing that you do at the end, but it's going to be that thing that you do straight from the beginning. We're also going to see an increase on and focus on data minimization, which basically means that organization will prioritize collecting only the essential data so that they can reduce the risk associated with data breaches. And they will also look at, how do you implement strategies to retain minimal personal information while, sort of respecting user preferences as well, right? So, okay, let me just see, there's a question here. Okay, I think it's more of a comment. Yeah, so when you think about, sort of these data privacy trends, you will see that there's really a shift to a more consumer-centric privacy practice with greater transparency in data usage. So customers, will have more, more to say in terms of how their data more, sort of concerns around data usage, algorithm bias, and all of that. There will also be more frameworks in terms of AI application in data handling. We also predict a rise in technologies that promote decentralized data ownership, where users have more control over their personal data, allowing them to decide how it's used and shared, supported by blockchain and other disrupted ledger technologies. And we're already seeing a lot in terms of identity management around that, right? Where some countries are moving towards fully integrated, blockchain-based identity management systems for their citizens, where citizens can give access to specific data that is on that blockchain for specific periods of time to specific organizations that need to verify their identity or verify, maybe their address or whatever it is. So overall, consumers are going to have will also, first of all, demand more control over their personal data. I think as people get more clued up around the value of their own data and the fact that the data actually should be something that they have control over, the more there will be pressure also from the consumer side, right? And that means that you need more sophisticated tools for really managing consent and preferences that individuals can easily access and use, right? So you also really need to think about, yes, data rights is human rights, and I think you really need to think as an organization, how do you do that, right? You don't want to get a lawsuit because somebody has maybe sent you an email to say, I don't want you to use my data or share my data. But you missed that email, and then you use the data and share the data in your marketing with maybe your agency or whatever it is, and then they sue you, right? So, and this is a very, very basic example, right? So and this is where this privacy by design really comes in, right? So as you're building an app for a banking app, for example, thinking about how can the user manage privacy settings directly from the app in real time. And how does that feed into all of the different systems that are actually accessing and using that data? So there's a lot to sort of think about. And the use of AI, to enhance privacy protection will also grow. I think we're going to see more AI-powered tools that are going to assist in anonymizing, encrypting data, and just monitoring the use of real-time data. So the key takeaways here is that executives really have to prioritize compliance, right? I think that's something that's really big. And as they prioritize compliance, they also, really have to look at what are the privacy laws that are there. You have to adopt sort of a proactive data stewardship mentality to really gain consumer trust and reduce the risk of penalties, which means that executives and board members alike actually really have to understand how privacy and data work, right? And how it applies to them and their organizations in detail, right? Data privacy has to be integrated into the development of products and services and systems from the start, not as an afterthought. You have more reliance on AI, so executives also have to be sure that you have strong frameworks for handling data, right? Focusing on transparency, that it's fair, that there's no bias in it, ensuring that it's being used in a responsible manner as well. Businesses have to avoid, sort of not allowing customers to manage their data. So they have to provide tools that allow customers manage data preferences and privacy preferences. And I think we're also going to see a surge in demand for roles focused on data ethics, compliance, privacy preserving technologies. So if you are, sort of going into the workforce at this point, or you're looking for, sort of like a change in profession, this might be something that you can, kind of jump on, and that might be interesting. So talk a little bit about sustainability marketing and ESG brand integration. And some people will say, "Oh, but this seems really left field for digital trends," but it's not, because all of our marketing is actually being done in a digital way, right? Whether it is on social media, whether it is across your website or whatever it is, right? So, and ESG is also one of the things that the use of technology does, is to create carbon emissions. So we really have to think about that as well, right? And then how do you design products that are innovative, that are, kind of in line with the circular economy? How do you use data again? Because if you're measuring your ESG, sort of metrics, you also will see that there's a lot of data that you actually need, and probably AI to actually measure all of it, right? So what we're seeing from the sustainability marketing and ESG brand integration side is that there's going to be much more purpose-driven storytelling and brand building. So consumers expect brands today to actually deliver real value and impact, right? Both for the society and for the environment. I think when you think about ESG, a lot of people, kind of make the E really, really big and the rest a little bit smaller. But I think on the continent, the S is really, really big, right? We have so many societal issues and so many discrepancies between rich and poor and infrastructure needs and all of that, right? So as an organization, your role is to impact people, right? People, planet, and purpose. Those are the sort of keywords that we always hear. So you have to figure out, how do you share purpose-driven stories and branding with proof, right? Which means that you're going to need much more third-party certifications, as well as more detailed sustainability reporting. So you really need to think about, how are you going to embed that into your organization? So brands will continue to integrate ESG principles into their core brand values and brand messaging. I also think that we're going to see much more transparency in sustainable supply chains, that really focus on sourcing and carbon neutral operations. And I think those things will set a brand apart, right? And consumers are expecting also products that are not only eco-friendly, but also socially responsible, right? So brands have to really think about the circular economy models and how they can design products for longevity, reusability, with a minimum environmental impact, and market these innovations to the customers that are already very, very focused on, environmental stewardship, societal impact, and all of that, right? And when you look at, sort of some of the commentary around the, fires that are happening in LA at the moment, that a lot of people are saying, you see, this is why brands need to be more responsible, right? This is why big companies need to do better. And not just, sort of say, oh, we're going to do X, Y, Z, but actually do it and, sort of then tell those stories. So I think we'll see a shift where marketing will increasingly be driven by a brand's purpose, and campaigns that will emphasize social good, environmental stewardship, and community impact. I think as the climate concerns grow, brands will have to integrate sort of real-time carbon footprint tracking into their actual marketing strategies, where they can offer carbon offset solutions. And, some of the airlines do this, some of the other, big companies already do that. But the question is, what can you do, right? And how do you make sure that you actually reach your net zero goals and policies, right? A lot of people have 2025 goals for net zero. Some people have 2030 or 2032 goals. And that is not that far away, right? So there's a lot that has to happen. And I think these things will become a key component in your ESG-driven marketing, to really demonstrate your environmental commitment. I think we're also going to see a change in influencer marketing that will evolve more to focus on sustainability influencers. So this could be individuals or organizations known for their dedication and environmental social causes. So I think in that space, there's going to be a lot of partnerships that brands need to really start considering. So from a marketing perspective, brands will need to really think about, who do we partner with? What are the NGOs? What are the causes that are sustainability focused, that we can sort of bring on board, that will help boost our credibility, that will help, sort of expand also the reach of our sustainability campaigns. You will see a lot of cause-related marketing, where brands actively support environmental causes, human rights, and diversity in their messaging. And, I think we're also going to see a lot more business strategies that align with sustainability, ethical sourcing, social responsibility, and stuff like that. I think overall, you can say that the trends point towards a future where sustainability is not just a marketing tactic, but an actual integral part of a brand's identity, right? And I think that's the shift that we're really going to see this year. And I think that will build trust. It will shape consumer decision making. It will influence how companies operate, and also communicate their values. And of course, you need data in order to track all of this, right? So big data and AI are going to help brands track, measure, and communicate the impact of their sustainability efforts in real time, offering transparency, detailed insights into the environment, and social contributions, and with that, sort of building consumer trust. So the key takeaways are that, organizations and executives really have to make sure that they're being transparent about sustainability and ESG practices, that they provide verifiable proof of their actions. ESG principles have to be fully embedded into the core values of the brand and not just as a marketing strategy, right? So I think what we're seeing more and more is that as you build your business or brand strategy, right, you are embedding ESG, you're embedding AI, you're embedding risk, you're embedding all sorts of different things into that strategy, and the strategy becomes much more complex than it has ever been, right? So those are some of the things that as a board member or an executive you really need to start thinking about. You also need to start thinking about prioritizing product innovation, right? So how do you ensure that your products are in line with circular economy business models, that they have longer product life cycles, that they meet consumer expectations? And how do you also make sure that your third-party vendors that you're buying from adopt these same models, right? Because it's not just you, it's, it trickles down. Then you obviously have marketing campaigns that need to be aligned with your company's purpose, demonstrate, tangible contributions to social and environmental causes. Executives need to implement systems that track and reduce the company's carbon footprint and incorporate these efforts into the brand narrative, right? So there's a lot of work, I think, to be done on the sustainability marketing and ESG brand integration side. So let's move into the emerging technologies. So we'll talk a little bit about blockchain. Blockchain, is sort of moving beyond. So we used to sort of think about blockchain and crypto hand in hand, but I think we're really seeing that blockchain is evolving and becoming more versatile. So blockchain for decentralized finance, or DeFi, is going to continue to expand. There will be more decentralized financial services like lending and insurance. And I think this will really challenge traditional banking systems and improve scalability and security. So if you are, part of a traditional financial service company, these are things to really keep an eye on and to really think about how you can also innovate around these technologies within your current operations, to engage the regulators also to say, this is what's coming, how do we prepare for this, right? Because this is not just basic fintech, right? This is actually decentralized finance. So it has a very different operating model that is sort of underneath that. Blockchain will also enhance supply chain transparency, and this will enable real-time tracking and verification of goods, ensure ethical sourcing, and reduce fraud. There's going to be a focus shifting to cross-chain interoperability. So cross-chain interoperability basically just means that you will be able to, sort of operate between different blockchains, which wasn't possible before, right? And that means that blockchain networks will be able to share data, assets, and that will increase the overall utility of these, different blockchains, as well as the efficiency. We're also going to see an integration of quantum computing with blockchain that will lead to quantum safe encryption and blockchain quantum applications, securing data against future quantum threats. So as your computing power grows, it also means that, you have the risk of your current encryptions and your current security measures not holding up, right? Which means that you now need new technologies to actually drive encryption. I also think that non-fungible tokens, NFTs, will evolve beyond art. So currently, we're seeing a lot of NFTs that are, kind of linked to art. Some of them have utility, some of them don't. But I think we're going to see tokenization of assets like real estate, intellectual property, and digital contracts that will really revolutionize ownership and identity management. So I think this is something that the lawyers should be looking at and really thinking about how they can build skills within that space in order to be able to manage and also advise on very, very complex ownership structures that may not be traditional ownership structures. Let's go over to 5G and IoT. And I think this is really the backbone for a connected future. So 5G networks will obviously continue to roll out globally. This will enable faster data speeds, lower latency, transform industries. We're going to see also the adoption of IoT in smart cities with accelerating more and more, connecting infrastructure, utilities, and services for real-time monitoring, energy efficiency, and improved urban living. 5G will also empower IoT devices with faster communication, enabling them to process data in the real time, support innovation like autonomous vehicles and industrial automations. And when you think about, other countries and cities like San Francisco or LA, where autonomous vehicles are, sort of order of the day, you really understand how much, things are going to, sort of evolve and change, because 5G will enable these vehicles communicate with infrastructure, each other in real time, and that will also pave the way for very much safer self-driving cars and smarter transportation systems, right? Where you see the trend here, right? Humans and human operators are becoming less and less important. And what's becoming more and more important is actually technology or AI operated devices and, mobility and things like that. Edge computing will complement IoT by processing data closer to the source, reducing latency and bandwidth demands for real-time applications in sectors like manufacturing and healthcare. So I think one of the things that has stood out here is that healthcare keeps being mentioned. And I think that's, one of those things that we really need to watch, and also think about from a strategy perspective as a continent and as a country. At CES, they just launched a device, an AI scanner. So you stand on it and it scans your entire body functions, right? Your heart functions. So all the things that you would go to have like a whole day checkup in a hospital will be done in a few minutes, and the results are instantaneous. And that is just sort of the beginning of what we're going to see. We're going to see the integration of AI with IoT, and this will create even smarter devices, right, that can make decisions, predict maintenance needs, optimize operations across various industries. You would see things where machines know when they need to be serviced and, can send messages directly to the servicing maintenance provider. They will come do the servicing, or they may even be able to do it remotely. So there's a lot of things that are going to change and require less and less humans. So the question is, what are you, going to be doing with your time when all of this is happening, and what kind of jobs are you going to have in the future? And I think these are things that you really, need to, kind of think about. We're also seeing, CES had a lot of amazing innovation that was launched there. So Samsung actually launched their AI TVs. So they're moving away from smart TVs to AI TVs. And what's the difference? The AI TVs basically are able to first of all, customize content to the people who are watching, right? And this is not like, oh, I have a Netflix profile and you have a Netflix profile, and because we watch different things, we see different things. No, this is actually AI creating content, and searching for content for you based on the preferences that you have. It will also be able to summarize content for you real time. So you're watching something, let's say a documentary, because I don't know why you would want to summarize a show, but you're watching a documentary and you want to know exactly what was said. And AI, the same way that AI note taker sends you a summary of the meeting afterwards, it would be able to give you a summary of that. AI translation would also be real time on these AI TVs, right? Where you're watching something in a language, it hasn't been translated, but with AI, you can put subtitles in the language that you speak immediately. We're also seeing, things like different pens where you can write notes. The pens have cameras embedded, so it's basically capturing what you're writing and sending that immediately to your mobile device. So you can take notes on a regular paper and have those notes on your iPad, on your phone, on your computer, in real time. So for all the people who still like notebooks, but then, kind of are like, I don't know which notebook this thing is in, that might be a good solution. What else was at CES? There was some smart AI glasses, right? So you wear the glasses, and the glasses basically are able to, sort of scan your environment, give you information on, different things like the I don't know, so maybe you see a bus schedule, it will be able to tell you whether the bus is really coming based on the scheduled time. It'll be able to tell you how much a planter costs that you saw that you like. It'll be able to real time translate what a person is saying to you in a different language and allow you to, sort of see the response in their language. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. And then I think there's one more that I thought was really interesting. It's called Omi, and it's basically this device that you can wear on your necklace, or you can, with medical tape, kind of put it on your temple. And when you do that, you are basically able to connect it with your brain. I mean, this sounds very creepy because it's not a chip in your brain, but basically there is a connection, and it allows, it basically helps answer questions. It can summarize conversations, right? It also saves context, right? So imagine you're having, a conversation. It will summarize the conversation and send you the notes, the highlights. It will remember that conversation. So when you go back to speak to that person again, it will give you context of, this is what you had agreed, this is what you talked to the person about, so all those times when you're like, yeah, I don't really remember if I said that or not. Now you will have, someone that is keeping track. And those are some of the things where you're just like, wow, like, what kind of world will we have in the next 5 years? But yeah, so that's, sort of just a little bit around integration of AI and IoT. And yes, everybody, really needs to start preparing. I think also when we think about, sort of emerging technologies, there's always, that word Metaverse. And I think it for a couple of years, because I've been doing this technology trends, I think, since, I don't know, 2019 or something, every year. And I think, it was one of those things that I talked about then. And, for many years, it was more of like a buzzword or something that is for a very small niche community. But I think now it's actually going to accelerate, and it will become a foundational cornerstone. So the adoption of 5G and quantum computing especially is going to drive these immersive experiences, because you have reduced latency, that is near zero. You unlock new ways for businesses and consumers to interact. Metaverse environments will enable immersive shopping experiences, so you can be in the store without being in the store. You can try clothes on and see how you look in the clothes without trying them on. I mean, just imagine, like, you don't need to go into a changing room. You don't need to queue up. You could just go try everything on, see how you look, choose the different colors that you want to see it in, and then make a purchase. I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? You are also going to see an increased investment in virtual real estate, with brands and individuals buying and developing and monetizing digital spaces for commerce, entertainment, and social interactions. So, that should be something that you're thinking about as an organization and maybe even as an individual. Metaverse platforms are going to become more interoperable, which means that, again, users are going to be seamlessly able to traverse different virtual worlds, carrying assets across, and also just being able to, kind of link different applications. And I think we'll also see a revolution in education and corporate training, where there will be an even deeper immersive way of learning and learning experiences that really simulate real life examples and provide hands-on practice in virtual settings, right? And that's really, really important, obviously, in many industries. There's also at CES, there was also a 3D projector that was able to project the metaverse into real life, right? So you can project an entire world into your living room, right? So imagine how that's going to change gaming, how, without virtual reality goggles, and how that's going to change so many different things that you're going to be able to do on the entertainment side, on the learning side, on the retail side. I think there's so much that is going to happen there. Then we also are going to talk about quantum computing, and I think this is just going to really redefine technological capabilities as a whole. I think there were a lot of breakthroughs in processing power in 2024, where there were problems that normal or current normal computers would have solved in, I don't know, like the number was so big that I didn't even know what the number was, but it would have taken them that many days. But this computer was able to solve it in just a few minutes because of the type of computing power that it had, right? That means that you're going to be able to solve very, very complex problems much, much faster, right? And you're also going to be able to, enhance encryption, enhance things like drug discovery, and all of that. I think you really need to start thinking about protecting data against quantum-enabled threats, right? Because if there's someone trying to hack you with a quantum computer, you have no chance, right? You're done. We're also going to see quantum cloud platforms emerging, right? Which means that businesses and researchers will have access to quantum computing power remotely. This will help democratize access to cutting-edge technology, and it means that your organization will also be able to have access to this type of computing power. Question is, what are you going to do with it? We're also going to see the integration of quantum computing and AI, of course, which I think will enhance machine learning capabilities and enable even faster data analysis and more accurate predictions across various industries. So imagine agentic AI powered by quantum computing, right? I mean, it's actually mind-boggling what is going to be possible with that. Quantum simulations will also accelerate drug discovery by modeling molecular interactions at unprecedented speeds and accuracy, significantly reducing time to market for new therapies. So some of you may know I studied bioinformatics, which is a double major in computer science and biology, and I used to work in pharmaceutical research as a developer, and we used to build these type of models, that basically model the reactions of an agent with different chemical structures, different genes and things like that. And that was already reducing, and this is like 20 years ago, right? So this is already reduced. That was already then reducing the drug discovery time from 12 years to 6 years, right? But with this, this means that you are going to be able to really see what is going to happen when this drug goes into a human being or into an animal or whatever it is. And that really will reduce time to market. And I think we're going to see a lot of innovation and also a lot of funding and investment going into this space, and I think that will really enhance, sort of human life in many ways. So what are the key takeaways for emerging technologies? The adoption of 5G and IoT will enable real-time data processing and even smarter devices. So executives need to leverage that to improve operational efficiency, enhance customer experiences, and enable transformation. As the metaverse becomes a mainstream platform, board members and executives should really explore the opportunities for immersive brand experiences, virtual workspaces, and product innovation, really ensuring that your organization is not left behind, but you're at the forefront of, sort of engaging your customers and employees in these digital environments. Quantum computing will revolutionize industries requiring advanced computational power, so executives should really think about exploring partnerships, investments, talent acquisition, right? All of these new technologies are going to need people who have the skills. So you really need to start thinking about how do you, bring these skills into your organization? How do you train within your training programs, right? How do you upskill existing employees fast enough? And I think that's really important. So there's a question here: how do our financial institutions leverage quantum computing given the limitations we have with resources? So I think the multiple limitations, right? One of the limitations is simply even just regulation and compliance, right? Will the regulator allow you to even go onto a quantum cloud, for example, right? So those are conversations that have to be had with the regulators within that space. I think the second thing is digital transformation is an investment, right? It is not a project. It is not a cost center. It is an investment. So it's really, really important to also understand that if you're not putting in an investment that is focused on research and development around these emerging technologies, you're always going to be playing catch up, right? So you need a team and you need money that team can use to actually play with these technologies, right? Another way of doing it, which is something that we've seen really in oil and gas quite a lot, is where oil and gas companies have brought in new technologies and new skills through acquisition, right? So they find smaller startups that are already working in this space, that are innovating around these things. And, when their technologies are, at maturity, they just go and buy them. And that way it's helping their, sort of energy transition. It's helping them be able to still focus on the core while actually innovating at the same time. So there are different approaches and different models of how you do that. And everybody has limited resources, right? At the end of the day, it's how you deploy those resources and also what your overall goal and vision is, right? Because if you think about it, you bring in AI and AI starts saving cost, right? And one of the things that you should be doing is to basically track your value realization from the technologies that you bring in. What's the return on investment? So you've implemented this automation. How many hours has this saved? How many jobs are not there anymore because of the fact that everything is automated now, right? Which means that your headcount has reduced, which means that your bottom line, your expenses reduce. How much money are you saving, right? How much are you saving on operational expenses that you would, sort of normally have? So I think that it's really about tracking that value realization and then also saying, okay, we've realized this value, so let's put it back as an investment into furthering more technology within the organization that can further reduce our cost, further reduce, sort of resources that we require. So that way you are creating a system where you're automating and you're optimizing, but at the same time, you're also investing in research and development. There's another question here. The metaverse hype seems to have died down somewhat compared to 2021, for example, as entities realize that people still crave the physical. Many seem to have pivoted to hybrid experiences as the expectations that the metaverse would rapidly take over seemed unfounded. What are your views on this? Yeah, so this is something that I was trying to allude to a little bit. I do agree. It definitely did slow down. And I think it's the age of the consumer. Right? The consumer with money in their pockets at the moment, right? Because when you look at the next generation that is coming, right? And this is I'm not even talking about Gen Z, I'm talking about Gen Alpha, right? And as from obviously this year, we're even, going to start talking about Gen Beta. That generation of Gen Alpha does not crave the physical. Their world is fully online, right? And they interact in that world as if it's the real world, right? And I think that generation, give it another 10, 15 years, are going to have money in their pockets to actually then drive that even more. But I think before that, we're going to see that accelerate simply because it's now more seamless, it's more accessible, the devices don't cost that much anymore. So I think when you think about technology adoption, as much as once the price drops, then adoption actually becomes much faster as well, right? So there's a lot of, things that I think are going to accelerate in terms of the metaverse. And I think as brands also put money behind exploring these immersive brand experiences and really innovating around their products, I think we're going to see more adoption as well. Okay, here's another question. AI is data-driven. Africa is data poor. How do we enhance data gatherings in Africa to get the best out of these emerging technologies? I think the first step is to really understand that data is everything, right? And that without data, you have no power, right? And I think once that mindset is something that is adopted by both governments, private sector leaders, and the general public, I think that is when you then, and once you have companies that are actually, sort of being forerunners in that field and that are winning because they are gathering data, because they're using that data to, enhance customer experiences, to, be able to personalize experiences and sell, I think that's when we're going to see more of that. I think one of the things is really to make technology a priority from a strategic point of view, right? I've always sort of said that technology is a strategic driver for socioeconomic development. And obviously data plays a really big part of that, but you need that as a country strategy, as a continental strategy in order to make any kind of headway, right? Data, I said that there's a lot of jobs that are going to be created around data privacy and things like that. I think that, one of those areas where we really need to just really think about how do we embed that into our existing curricula? How do we make sure that from a very young age, kids actually start thinking about data, that schools start thinking about how to teach these things? There has to be a system behind it, right? So if you don't have a system, then we will remain really where we are. So I think there's a strategy, then building the system, and then doing the actual implementation. And we just have to be fast with actually doing that. Okay, I'll take one more here. What would be your approach to the adoption of AI from governance, risk, and compliance point of view? Because some of the solutions we see today are quite expensive, and management have not seen the reason to invest that sum in that direction. So you'll never buy what you don't understand, right? Or what is not your priority. And this is something I learned very early on in business. So Futuresoft started almost 17 years ago as a web development agency. And at that time, there were hardly any companies that even had a domain name. Most were using Yahoo or Hotmail addresses. And even to sell a domain name was like pulling teeth. And I didn't really understand it at first. But it was one day when, there was a man that had said, oh, come and, tell me about this product that you have. Okay, this website. And I, went there, I pitched, and he said, young girl, I've been making money since before you were born. How much is this website going to bring in for me? And that day I understood that I needed to sell very differently. And that day I started doing more of education, right? And making sure that the decision makers actually understood the benefits, understood what they had to gain, both from a cost savings perspective, from a revenue generation perspective, from a perspective of how this actually helps them differentiate from their competition, how this helps them scale, how this helps them expand their footprint, how this helps them, engage their customers better or improve customer experience, whatever it is, right? So when you say that, management haven't seen the reason to invest, in that direction, is because management doesn't understand it. That means that you haven't done the work to explain it. This is why, I do these type of masterclasses and webinars to really start talking to the decision makers so that they have a better understanding and, a better and a deeper appreciation for what this can actually do for their business and what this looks like in terms of where the future is going, right? So you may not see immediate traction, but the more you talk about these things and the more you educate decision makers about this, the more positive responses you're going to actually see. So there are some more questions, but I'm going to just keep going and then I'll take them at the end. So some more emerging technology takeaways. Blockchain basically offers really transformative potential for enhancing data security, improving transparency, and ensuring compliance in different sectors. Executives really need to consider how blockchain can improve trust and efficiency in their organizations. The integration of AI with emerging technologies like quantum computing, IoT, and blockchain will drive smarter decision-making, automation, and predictive analytics. So that means that executives and board members really have to think about how do you adopt AI-powered systems to stay competitive, mitigate risk, and innovate across different business functions. So again, it boils down to really understanding the technologies and how these technologies are going to make you more competitive. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about digital marketing. And, I think what we're seeing is that it's evolving at the speed of light. When I think back, just maybe 10 years, it's actually quite interesting how much digital marketing has evolved and how it's become smarter, faster, and better, and very conversion focused, right? And I think with integration of AI, we're going to see more hyper personalized marketing that analyzes customer data to deliver tailored content, product recommendations, and targeted ads in real time. And with agentic AI, I think we're going to see more engagement with the customer. So I recently tried to buy a financial service product, and they just sent me the contract and were like, yeah, sign this, and then we'll move on to the next thing. And I'm like, I don't even understand this thing that you've sent to me. Why can't you have a process where you talk me through it and then give me the contract and then I can figure it out, right? So this is something that's very, very basic, but imagine you could have that in a conversation with an agent, right, that is AI powered, that will understand that you don't understand many of these things, that can give you all the information in plain English, that will come back to you and say, hey, do you understand everything now? Are you ready to move ahead? If you're ready to move ahead, here are the documents, sign this, then send it back to me, do this, do that, right? And you didn't need to interact with a person. I think it will be great. Then I think there's a rise of voice-enabled devices. And when I look at how my son searches on Google, for example, he doesn't type anything. He just goes to his computer, taps his microphone, and he's like, Google, tell me about the French Revolution. And then it will answer him in a voice. And I find this so bizarre because I would never, ever search with voice. Why am I doing that, right? But this is obviously behavior as a millennial that is embedded in how I, approach and use technology, and how he uses and approaches technology is very, very different, right? When you see kids talking to Siri or talking to Alexa, it is so funny, right? And they ask things that you're just like, how jobless must you be to ask these questions? But they unlock things, that you didn't even know Alexa could do. So my son was talking to my sister's Alexa, and he's like, Alexa, what is your name? Did you know that Alexa raps when you ask her that? And it's like really funny, actually. You see, it goes like, my name is Alexa. And then she just keeps going. And it's really something that an adult that is, Gen X, millennial, will probably never ask Alexa, right? Because we know it's called Alexa. Why am I asking it for the name? And the response is just so funny that the kids keep doing it over and over again. And then they're like, what else should we ask Alexa? Alexa, do you know Siri? And then, they have this full-blown conversation. So these voice-enabled devices will also require businesses to really adapt their search engine optimization strategies for long-tail conversational queries and optimize content for voice search, right? So you need to make sure that your content is optimized properly. Micro and nano influencers are going to become even more valuable because consumers are seeking authentic, relatable content from influencers with smaller but highly engaged audiences, right? So people are looking for recommendations, people are looking for where to buy things, and people to tell them where to go and eat and things like that. The use of AR and VR and interactive videos will grow, enabling brands to create engaging, immersive experiences for customers and increasing conversion rates. I think social media platforms will continue to integrate e-commerce features, and I think we're going to see much more live streams and sort of shopping in stories and all of that stuff happening on social media platforms instead of e-commerce platforms, right? So happening where you are at the moment, really pushing that impulse buy, did you really need that top? No, but you've now bought it because you were on Instagram and you saw it and you're like, this is cute, buy, pay, and go, right? So as the checkout process also becomes more seamless, you're going to have more conversions. So any kind of retail business really needs to think about how they're going to do that and what they're going to do from a conversion perspective on social media. AR technologies will allow consumers to virtually try products on before purchasing them. You can have interactive shopping experiences, and that will really bridge that gap between physical and digital retail, and also drive, retail purchases from customers that are not even in that region or in that country, right? AI tools will enable marketers to generate high quality content at scale. This is personalized copy, videos, visuals, making content creation faster and more efficient. So if you are still, kind of there sitting down and writing the content by yourself, there is a different company that is pushing out content across multiple platforms that is personalized, using AI to do that. Brands are going to shift towards collecting zero-party data, so information that consumers are willing to provide rather than relying on third-party data. That again helps consumers control their privacy more. Programmatic advertising powered by AI basically means that AI helps manage your digital advertising, and that allows you to automate and optimize your campaigns and be more precise in targeting and have real-time adjustments in that as well. Short form and live stream video will continue to dominate, with brands creating real-time engaging content to capture attention on platforms like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, and when you think about that, again, all of this content, again, is geared towards Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and at some point, Gen Beta. So really thinking about the new generation of consumers that are coming and how those are going to, how you're going to attract them early and bring them in early, right? So you want to make sure that as a brand, you're appealing to that generation, you're creating content for that generation so that you're top of the mind when they actually start having proper spending power. So key takeaways: AI-driven personalization and automation will be key to delivering tailored experiences at scale. So as an executive, invest in AI technologies that help with customer engagement and streamline your marketing. Voice search, chatbots need to be a big part of your marketing strategies and your real-time engagement strategies. You need to make sure that your content is optimized for it. With the rising concerns around data privacy, you really need to think about, how do you focus on privacy first in your marketing? How do you build trust? How do you make sure that you're transparent with your data collection methods? How do you make sure that you're complying with your regulator as well, if you have one? Or with the NDPR or whatever regulation is in your country. The growth of social commerce and short form videos will continue to drive. So executives really need to start exploring and investing in these new platforms and formats. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about AI and governance. So what I've done here in the governance and risk section is to, sort of go through each of the previous sections and think about what is the impact on governance for AI and automation? What's the impact of governance for data and privacy? What's the impact for, emerging tech and stuff like that? And then what is the impact on risk management? So for AI and automation, the impact on governance is that you have an increasing reliance on AI and automation. That means that you need governance frameworks that ensure accountability, transparency, and the ethical use of AI in the decision making. There has to be a focus on mitigating bias in your AI systems, establishing clear governance around your AI models, and really ensuring that automated systems align with company values and regulatory standards, right? So you need a new way of auditing all of this. You need a new way of making sure you have compliance. So there are probably new job functions that are coming your way to actually make sure that you're monitoring all of these things from a governance perspective. For impact on risk management, as AI automates critical business functions, the risk of algorithmic failures, systemic errors, and bias in decision-making increases. So boards will need to ensure that appropriate risk mitigation strategies are in place. You have to make sure that you're including your AI decision-making in your audits, that there's transparency in the automated processes, and that everything is documented, right? So that if anybody comes and says, well, your AI did this, you can go back and say, well, actually, our AI should have done this, and then you can figure out what went wrong. And addressing potential legal and regulatory risk, right? So if you are a lawyer, internal counsel, external counsel, you need to start really thinking about technology law from an AI perspective and through an AI lens, and what risks you need to be making your clients aware of. When it comes to data privacy and ethics, the impact on governance really is that with stricter regulations, companies will face increased pressure to comply with evolving legal frameworks. Corporate governance will need to integrate data protection as a key component of overall strategy, ensuring companies uphold ethical data practice and prioritize consumer consent as well. From a risk management perspective, I think we're going to see more data breaches, non-compliance with privacy laws, and that's going to result in severe financial penalties, reputational damage, legal risk. So executives really have to know that and make sure that you have robust data governance frameworks in place, that you have regular audits, you have proper data protection measures, that there's clear communication with stakeholders about how their data is being used and protected, and that you have tools available for people to actually manage their data privacy settings, right? So this is some of the stuff that you really need to take really serious, right? And you have to basically also, as an executive, monitor the emerging privacy regulations and adopt a privacy-first approach in digital marketing and data handling, right? So sometimes when we think about privacy, we talk and data, we think about it just from, okay, we've collected data from a KYC perspective, right? But then there's marketing, then, there's other channels, there are the products that we're using. Have we designed those products in a way that is privacy first, right? Did we use privacy by design, or did we just add a privacy layer afterwards? How are we really making sure that that data is, sort of in the hands of the consumer, and that they can control who gets access to it? Do we have the right controls within the organization? So there's a lot of stuff, and this is why this is one of the evolving fields, that because the more data we create, the higher the demand for this will be. So from sustainability and sustainability, marketing, and ESG brand integration point of view, we're going to see more sustainability, marketing, and ESG initiatives that will increasingly be scrutinized by investors, consumers, and regulators. So boards will need to ensure that sustainability efforts are not only genuine, but also well documented and aligned with your company's core values, right? So that you can create long-term value while maintaining transparency in your sustainability reporting, right? And at some point, your reports will not be something that you publish, but something that is pretty much real time. So from a risk management perspective, as you have more pressure on, embedding ESG, companies will also face risks related to greenwashing. And with that comes major reputational damage. Inconsistent reporting. If you're not getting the right data in, you're not going to have the right data out, and your reports are not going to be good or consistent. So you need to make sure that you are really embedding that measurement and tracking the right metrics into your day-to-day operations, that you are leveraging technology to do that, whether this is through IoT devices, whether this is through AI, or other ways of collecting data. But this is basically what you need to be really thinking about. How do you make sure that you don't fail at meeting your sustainability goals simply because you haven't put in the right processes? So board members have to ensure ESG risks are fully assessed and integrated into overall risk management strategies, right? So you can see that technology needs to be embedded in your risk management, ESG needs to be embedded, marketing needs to be embedded. So I feel like as a board member, the things that you need to know and the knowledge that you need to have in order to actually do risk well is growing and growing. And there's a lot that we need to, keep learning, basically. For emerging technologies, there's an impact on governance. So the rapid growth of emerging technologies like blockchain and quantum computing and the metaverse will require boards to fully understand governance implications of these technologies. So from a data security and privacy perspective to compliance with financial regulations and intellectual property risk, executives need to build agile governance structures capable of adapting to these disruptive technologies, right? Because the technologies change every day, and as regulators see risks, they change the regulations. So there's a lot of volatility in that space. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't play in that space. It just means that you have to be super careful and that you need to, really figure out how these complex risks can be managed, right? So you have very complex cybersecurity threats. You have, technology obsolescence. You have regulatory uncertainty. For instance, quantum computing, cloud, can render regular encryption, I mentioned this before, methods totally obsolete, right? that means that you have more vulnerabilities simply by this technology existing. Blockchain could challenge traditional financial systems and create regulatory uncertainties. So you really need to, as a board member, to really start thinking about how can you be more proactive with your risk management strategy for these technologies, and how do you make sure that you're constantly tracking what is actually happening within these industries, what is actually happening, sort of at the forefront of the technology evolution, so that you can put the appropriate safeguards in place. From a digital marketing perspective, you have trends such as AI-driven personalization, social commerce, and all of the ones that I mentioned. So as a board member, you really have to think about ethical marketing practices, ensuring customer data is handled well, that marketing strategies align with the values. There's need for oversight on advertising transparency, consumer protection, data privacy in your digital campaigns, right? So your board report should actually be looking at those things as well, right? Who are we advertising to? Did we protect our consumers? What are we doing from a data privacy perspective? How are we collecting that data? Where are we storing that data that we're collecting from digital campaigns? From a risk management perspective, the rise of these new things, as well as, sort of going into the metaverse, creates risk related to brand reputation, customer data security, and regulatory compliance. So boards have to really ensure that the company's digital marketing efforts are not in violation with any privacy laws, don't expose the company to reputational risk due to either unethical practices or misleading claims. So there's much more to pay attention to. So I'm going to go back into the chat and just kind of look at the other questions that we have here. What AI integration should a company secretary of a financial service company deploy to enhance effectiveness in his functions? So I think as a company secretary, there are many things that you can, sort of use. I would say just AI in general would be the first step, right? And really thinking about how you can use AI tools to enhance your function, right? So whether this is to ensure that AI is tracking regulation and policies within the organization, and ensuring that those policies don't have any loopholes, ensuring that you're in compliance with regulation, that you're aware of the new regulation, that your directors are and executives, your C-level execs are aware of what's happening, right? Making sure that you have AI that can also give you an opinion on, different issues that you're trying to solve. So I think AI would be, sort of like the first step. And then obviously really thinking through tools around data privacy and how you, sort of, I guess, track and manage that within the organization. We have a question from Valentine. What are your thoughts on the liability of AI-generated content? For example, if a law firm uses an AI-powered tool, who has liability, the law firm or the creators of the AI tool? Well, that depends on the contract that the AI tool has with the law firm, right? Usually, liability will lie with the user. If you use tools like ChatGPT, you will always have a thing there. ChatGPT can make mistakes, and ChatGPT makes many mistakes because it doesn't understand all your prompts, right? So I was trying to calculate sort of compound interest over a period of 10 years and calculate how much my admin fee for that service would be over time. And I put a prompt into ChatGPT and it didn't understand it, and it calculated it wrong. But because I know what the results should potentially be, I knew that there was a mistake there, right? And then I had to change my prompt. And at some point, it then got the table right and was able to actually give me the actual calculation, right? So I think the main thing really is don't use AI blindly, any type of AI, because AI is based on a model. AI is only as smart as the prompt that you put, which means that you need to learn how to prompt properly. I remember I was talking to someone who owns a school, and she was saying how, her teachers had, put a homework problem into AI and it gave the wrong result. And I said, yes, but look at the question. The question isn't clear. The question asked this. the question has grammar errors, and that's why the answer is wrong. I said, when your teachers learn how to prompt properly, they will learn how to get the right results. I said, and the thing is that the kids that are in that class know how to prompt properly, and they know what the result is supposed to be, and they will be able to actually solve that using the AI. So there's also that part of, as a user, you need to be able to have the right skills to get the right result. Is blockchain-based CBDCs a hype or coming reality? I think in many countries it's already a reality. I know on the continent there's quite a lot of talk around CBDCs and being able to enable currency swaps, especially after the signing of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But I think these things, the adoption is still slow, right? And the adoption is slow. Because, again, when you don't understand something, you don't prioritize it, right? So our leaders actually have a very low understanding of technology. And because they have a very low understanding of technology and what benefits it can actually bring from a strategic perspective, they are not actually prioritizing the right things and not pushing the things that would help leapfrog. Okay, Camille is asking, what is your call to action? I'll come to that. Then we have here another. Okay, the increased risk of cyber attacks, data breaches, and fraud tend to pose challenges to the organization's intended objective. What would your recommendations on how client confidence can be improved, maintained to ensure both expectations of adoption and use are achieved? Okay, I mean, you're always going to have breaches, right? I think that's something that we just need to have as a as a basis, right? It's not if you get hacked, it's when you get hacked. It's not if you have a breach, it's when you have a breach, right? And it's what you do when you have it, right? And I think the main thing really boils down to communication and stakeholder engagement, as well as proactive stakeholder education, right? And I think when we think about financial services, or even telecommunications, right? So I know that there have been campaigns that are driven by both CBN and NCC that sort of focus on don't give out your PIN, don't do this, don't do that, right? That is part of the kind of consumer education. I think now the question is, how do you make that education more robust? How do you get your customers to the level that they can use these more advanced technologies? How do you get them to the level that they can say, okay, no, actually, this sounds a bit fishy, right? Because you still have people who are like, today my friend sent me an SMS or a WhatsApp message and said she was in trouble and I transferred money. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't know which friend is going to send me this without me calling the friend and saying, are you really in trouble? Or trying to reach somebody that the friend knows before transferring money, right? And this is something that has been going on for years, right? Which tells me that consumers still do not have enough knowledge and enough experience in actually handling these type of situations, right? Which is why there are still many people who have made that their livelihood, right? And, if you're not the type of person to fall for it, they will abuse you on the phone when they call you and ask you for money and things like that. So I think proactive consumer education is key. I think staying ahead of, the type of breaches that are possible. I think there has to be a lot of collaboration and information sharing within different industries and also across industries, and making sure that, you have the right type of standards, but never being afraid of actually, leading in technology just because you know that you can have breaches. So in terms of, sort of challenges and opportunities, so key challenges we've mentioned: data privacy, security risk, integration and interoperability issues, cybersecurity threats, ethical concerns, AI and automation, talent and skills gaps. We've mentioned all of these things. But obviously, there's always a good side to it. So what are the opportunities? You can make your processes and your business more efficient. You can reduce cost. You can enhance your customer engagement and customer experience. You can decentralize your data. You can decentralize your processes and create more transparency. You can have a lot of sustainable innovations and ESG leadership by embedding, circular economy models for your product development. You can unlock new revenue streams with digital assets, right? So we talked about, NFTs becoming assets to own property, to own intellectual property, and so on. And I think those are things that we really need to explore as executives. And board members. So what do you need to do? You need to foster innovation and upskilling. So you have to build a culture of continuous learning where teams are encouraged to explore, adapt, and innovate, embrace new technologies, and sort of redefine your operations and customer engagement. And this has to be an ongoing process. So not just like, we did an audit 2 years ago and then we optimized some things and now we're up to date. You can never be up to date with technology, right? Position your organization as a thought leader and forerunner for driving change, because that is also how you engage that next generation of consumers. Tech investments, aligning, sort of the technology adoption with your organization's strategic objectives to maximize your return on investment, prioritizing tools that enhance agility, efficiency, scalability, such as AI-driven analytics, cloud-based platforms, staying ahead, and, sort of really by experimenting, and, sort of by being future-facing. From an ethics and sustainability perspective, make ethical practices your cornerstone, and make sure that you have transparency and accountability in your governance, leverage ESG principles to guide decision-making, ensuring that you're balancing profitability and social impact, communicate your commitment to sustainability, using authentic storytelling and building trust and loyalty. And then I've put together a little, sort of assessment that can help you assess your technology readiness. So the questions every executive and board member should be asking themselves: are we preparing for the widespread adoption of 5G and IoT? How are we integrating AI and automation into our business strategy? How are we preparing for the rise of the metaverse? What is our strategy for and integrating blockchain technologies? Are we equipped for quantum? How do we ensure data privacy and security in a rapidly evolving landscape? Are we ready for stricter data privacy regulations in 2025? And do we have processes in place to ensure compliance? Or GDPR if you're in mitigating them. So those are the questions that you should be asking yourselves. And we will come to, a close. So if you have any questions, please put them in the question box. I will also answer the ones that are still pending. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I hope this session was useful, and I hope that you were able to sort of take some of the things away that you will need in your executive functions and in the boardrooms that you sit in. All right, so we have a question here. NFT market also crashed along with the metaverse. Most investors, top of the market, lost money. Useful foray still calculated with some caution. Buy now comes to mind. Yes, I mean, I think obviously there's no financial advice here, but I think it's one of those areas that, as also Bitcoin, kind of went back up after the announcement of Trump being elected as the next president. I think it's one of those things that you can now sort of go back into and look back into, right? Especially because I think that there's a lot of new opportunities. A lot of the bubble projects have also collapsed, and it's the ones that have real utility behind, that have a real actual usage behind it that have remained. So I think it's something to explore, and something to sort of look at again. But obviously, don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Okay, yeah. So someone said, that there are a lot of feeds that say invest in AI, the same, similar to invest in crypto in 2012. I guess you have to be calculative. Yeah, but if you invested in crypto in 2012, you'll be a millionaire by now, right? So I think obviously invest with caution, be smart about it, don't put all your money into it. But there are a lot of opportunities out there, a lot of companies. When you just think about the valuations that AI companies have gone through in the last 24 months, it is insane and ridiculous. And anyone who has invested in them, and you can just take a very simple example, which is NVIDIA, right? So NVIDIA between 2020 and 2025, has gained, I think, about 900% increase, right? So you can do the math if you put $1,000 into it in 2020 and where you are today. I think it's one of those things you need to follow the trends, follow what the companies are doing very, very closely, especially if they're publicly listed companies. If they are, if you're investing as an angel investor, you really need to think about who's the team behind it, what technology are they building on, what kind of partnerships do they have, who are who's the target audience and stuff like that, right? So you do have to really look at any kind of investment that you make in that AI space, very, very carefully, like you would any other investment as well. Okay, there's one more from Rabi. Some analysts believe new emerging AI companies are where investing opportunities lie at the moment rather than NVIDIA's. I wonder. Yes, I think the NVIDIA wave, if you haven't invested in NVIDIA yet, you're kind of like a little bit behind. There are new companies and companies that are changing their business models and really embedding agentic AI out there that you can invest in, that are already big listed companies, but that are basically future proofing with embedding agentic AI. And I think those are the ones worth really looking at. Those are the ones to sort of follow and kind of figure out how to invest in now in order to actually ride that wave, right? So I think currently we're sort of like in the third wave of AI powered stocks or AI related stocks. NVIDIA was in that second wave. And it's to really look at what are the new companies, and then which company stocks should you also be selling because they're not embracing AI properly, and competition will soon come and disseminate them. So I think there's a lot of sort of research that is required. Do you have any tips for organizations looking to innovate their own technologies using no-code tools? Yes, I think, first of all, you still need somebody who actually knows how to code in order to use no-code tools, because you need to, and someone who understands product design, right? I think that's the, sort of first thing, right? I think sometimes people think, oh yeah, I could do that by myself. There's a reason why they're product designers. There are reasons why they're UI UX designers. There's a reason why there are, people who spend hours and hours on building wireframes and building, sort of the back ends and things like that. So no code tools are really great because they democratize access to technologies to anyone, but you still have to have a base knowledge on how to use them, right? So it's sort of the same thing with ChatGPT. You don't know how to prompt properly, then you basically also are unable to get the real benefits of using this. And I remember when I was in university, in our first year, we learned how to use Google. And Google not for, I want to find out how to bake cake, but Google for research, right? And I realized that there were so many functions within Google search that I didn't even know. And I, prided myself as, oh, I'm, like this tech guru and I know how to use all of these things. But I learned so much in that course. And it's the same thing when you do an actual course on prompting. The same thing when you actually figure out, like, what is the knowledge that you need to actually build a product, right? And you need more than a tool to build a product. So I would say you still need the person who understands the design, that understands how to build a system to do that. Okay, so I'm going to give it 1 or 2 more minutes for additional questions. Thank you so much for being here and for listening. Once again, my name is Nkemdi Numuwaje-Bell, and as many of you probably know or can guess, I do a lot of speaking around technology, a lot of training around technology, consulting around technology, especially from a digital transformation strategy point of view. So if you require any of those services, please reach out. We will, again, send an overview of the slides. We will send some of the key recommendations. We will also send the self-assessment questionnaire to you. So the slides are actually going to be uploaded on SlideShare, and we will send it to everyone who registered for the webinar. We are also going to post them on our LinkedIn platform. We'll also share them again in the different groups that I had initially shared the invitation in. So yes, Segi, you'll definitely get the slides at some point. And yes, thank you so much and have a wonderful new year. I pray that everybody wins when it comes to technology in 2025.